There's no past version of you that's pulling you. There's no future version of you that's pulling you in this other direction. What you're left with is right now, this moment. When we talk about conflict within, it's because you have these things that you haven't addressed. The version of me right now is deserving of the love, is deserving of all of the good feelings, is deserving of everything. Hello, beautiful soul. Welcome to the Art of Being podcast, a secret space where we dive into spirituality, healing, manifestation, and all the magic of becoming. We explore the depth of the human experience, the pain, the triggers, the healing, the expansion, the joy, and what it means to move through life with awareness and intention. I am Bamzi, a mindset and manifestation coach. I'm so glad that you're here. Take a deep breath, settle in, and let's journey together. Welcome to the Art of Being Beautiful Soul. This week, I'm taking a break from hosting a guest because I want to talk about something that I've been wanting to talk about for a long time. And if you follow me on social media, on TikTok or Instagram, you might see that this is something that I'm now starting to talk about more and more, and that is, collapsing the future and the past into the now, living in the now, right? Instead of wanting to escape to, an imaginary future that does not exist, or revisiting things that happened to you or things that you did in the past, right? Because when you address like a lot of trauma and you address a lot of things that maybe you did in the past, right? When you address that, you collapse that past and you no longer need to go there. And when you stop projecting things into the future, right? Or you stop creating, fake scenarios, right? You collapse that. And now what you're left with is right now, this body, this moment, right? And you're just looking at like what is in front of me instead of just think of like having a rope, like a rope where like there's a past version of you on the other side and then there's a future version of you on the other side, right? And you're in the middle, this version of you is in the middle. And so you're being pulled in these two directions, right? There's like a tug of war. So, and that is what causes a lot of conflict within, right? When we talk about conflict within, it's because you have these things that you haven't addressed. Like the first version of you that maybe you did something that you're regretful about, you're shameful about, you're not proud of, right? If you haven't forgiven that part of you, it's just going to be stuck there, and your mind is always going to go there because you're always going to be like, oh my gosh, like I'm so bad, I'm so shameful because I did all of those things, right? You shame yourself, right? You deny this version of you love because of things that you did in the past. And if it's trauma, that things that happened to you, let's say you were like abandoned, you were, rejected and all of those things, you say that I don't deserve love, I was abandoned, I was rejected. And so this version of you then does not experience the love that it deserves because you're hyper fixated on things that happened to you in the past, right? So the work is to collapse those things, right? To cut the rope so that like there's no past version of you that's pulling you. There's no future version of you that's pulling you in this other direction. What you're left with is right now, this moment. I really do think that the present moment is all we will ever have. And in fact, I do have like one of the pictures that I have on my wall says that the present moment is all we will ever have. It's a quote by Eckhart Tolle. So when I say that, I mean that the future is actually a thought and the past is also a thought. So think about this. When you think about the future, it's you're not living right now. Like your body, this body that you have right now is not living in that future. That future is an imaginary. It's something that your mind is creating, right? So your mind wants to escape into that imaginary future, mostly because you don't like your current reality, or you think that imaginary future is you're going to be happy, or you're going to be content, or you're going to have the freedom, or all the feelings that your current reality right now doesn't have. So then because you don't like what's happening right now, right? Then you escape to that imaginary future through your mind, right? But it does not exist right now. Or sometimes if you're not escaping or you're not projecting, your desired reality into the future, what you're sometimes doing is maybe creating fake scenarios in your mind, because your mind thinks that, okay, like I need to protect you, I need to keep you safe. So therefore, by thinking of worst possible scenarios that might happen, I'm protecting you, right? So then what you do is then you imagine the worst case scenario, and then you create that in your mind. So for example, you think of like your money running out. You see it as going from whatever amount that you have right now to zero. And when you do that, when you are having those thoughts, what's happening is that it's sensing, your mind is sending a signal to your body that this is not safe, right? And then your body is experiencing that threat. So this body right now that you're living in right now, not the future body, this body right now is experiencing a threat from a worst case scenario that hasn't happened. It's a worst case scenario that your mind has created, right? So you see, like you're escaping this current reality into a fake future and experiencing those things even though like they haven't happened. Or like you're wanting to escape like whatever you don't see right now and project it into a future. And like I feel like what you're saying when you do that, what you're saying is that this version of me in this current reality, because it doesn't have those external things, it doesn't deserve the love, it doesn't deserve the freedom, it doesn't deserve the joy. And you're projecting that into a desired version of you, and kind of saying that that desired version of you is the one that is deserving of all of those things, right? Because if you're saying that this version of you deserves all of those things, then you would want to bring it now, you would want to experience those things now instead of projecting them into the future. A lot of the work that I did that finally helped me align my mind and my body is actually doing deeper work of addressing the internal conflict. And when I say the internal conflict, I'm saying like the parts of you that feel unworthy, the parts of you that don't feel safe in this world, the parts of you that are feeling shame, the parts of you that are criticizing you, right? Those parts of you are causing internal conflict. They are causing that disconnect between the mind and the body, because the mind is telling you stories. The mind is so good at creating stories. My mind was beautiful at creating fake stories, telling me stories about like, okay, that person did not text you because you are not deserving of being texted, or you're not deserving of love. It's because of your identity. It's because of who you are. Your mind would tell me those false stories and I would believe my mind, right? And the reason I would believe my mind is because the body and mind were not connected, right? Because the body was already feeling unsafe, right? I hadn't created safety within my body. So when my mind would tell me a story, I would believe it, because the mind and body now, like they're both telling stories of being unsafe, right? I would immediately believe it, right? One of the biggest things that I did was to start to do parts work. So then like the parts of me that were saying that I'm unworthy, I would sit with them. Those were like really heavy feelings. Sometimes it felt like a heavy thing that's sitting on my chest. It feels like a heaviness. So I would sit with that heaviness and be like, okay, you're feeling unworthy today. You're feeling unsafe. Like, what do you need from me right now? And then I realized that all my parts were asking for me is to be seen, to be loved, and to be accepted without judgment, right? And you know that Carl Jung says that until you make the unconscious conscious, it's going to direct your life, and you will call it fate, right? So for me, the unconscious was really directing my life. And the way that it was showing up was that the way that I would react when I was triggered, right? Like if somebody did not text me, if somebody maybe said something in a text, because the way that I'm reading the text is based out of my consciousness, and it's based out of my wounding, right? And I would read a text, I would of course make a meaning out of like what somebody said, right? And I would get triggered, right? Because the unconscious is directing my life, right? Because I haven't addressed that conflict. So then I would be triggered. And then the way that I would respond to whatever somebody said or whatever somebody didn't do, I would withdraw. Like, I'm not the type of person who confronts head on. I would just withdraw my energy. I would just go silent, right? And in those cases, I didn't realize that my unconscious, my wounding, the parts of me that I hadn't integrated were actually directing my life. They were driving my behavior, right? So, and therefore like causing a lot of conflict within, right? So instead of addressing something, and asking somebody like, what was your intention when you said that, right? What I would do is just make a meaning, right? And that would cause a lot of suffering and would cause a lot of conflict, because I would spend a lot of time in the shower. I'm like having a conversation with that person and thinking like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this. I can't believe they said that. Just creating more stories, making more meaning in my head, right? Instead of, addressing whatever that somebody said and then just getting that done, right? So I'm just causing suffering because the conflict was within, right? It's not about what that person said. It's not about what they did, right? It's about like what did that trigger in you, right? What was the sensations that came up in your body when they did that or they said that, right? So for me, that was the case, right? So when I started to address that head on, right? If I notice like there's a sensation after somebody said something or after somebody did something, I would pay attention to my body. Like, what is my body experiencing because of that? Not like, what did they do? What is my body experiencing because of that? And if I paid attention to the experience, then I would ask that part of me, okay, what do you need right now, right? Like, you're feeling hurt, you're feeling abandoned, you're feeling rejected. What do you need right now? You're feeling unworthy. What do you need from me right now, right? So it's like giving that part of me what it needs instead of focusing on what somebody did or what somebody said. I'm just redirecting that energy to like what I need, right? And I realized that that is what radical love and radical acceptance is about, right? So it's like you're focusing on the present moment. It's not like what did they do yesterday? What did they do 2 years ago? What did they do 5 years ago, right? It's like what is coming up in my body, right? Okay, yes, because of that experience, like what is coming up in my body, right? I'm not focusing on the story. I'm focusing on the sensation in my body and then asking that part of me what it needs, right? And if you look into parts work, what Richard Schwartz says is that your parts are just asking for your love, for your acceptance, and for them to exist within you without judgment. And that is the work that I started to do in order to create that coherence between the mind and the body. Because the thing that you don't realize is that when you address a lot of this conflict, when you sit with the heavy parts of you, what happens is that when you hold them with love and compassion is that they dissolve, right? And therefore, like, the mind doesn't have anywhere to go. Like, the mind can't create stories because you're addressing, because you're paying attention to your body, right? The mind will never hijack you because you brought those things out of the unconscious into the consciousness. Because you are the driver. The mind is not driving you. The more you do this work, the easier it becomes in just catching the story before you spiral, right? And that is the beauty of awareness. That is the beauty of expanding your consciousness. Like I said, it's not easy for the unconscious to hijack you and start to direct your life because you've taken over the driver's seat. Because your awareness is expanded, your consciousness has expanded. Whenever that old story comes up, right? Like, so for example, I'll give an example. Recently, I started to notice that I was starting to create stories about like this friendship that I have. Like, whenever I would think about like, okay, what's happening with this friendship, and I would feel like there's a disconnect, I would start to feel unsafe. The way that I would feel, it's like a heaviness in the chest, like because I'm feeling sad or because of that disconnect from the friendship, right? And I would notice, because I've built my awareness, I would notice the heaviness in my chest, right? And I would say like, okay, I know that you're feeling hurt right now, because it's not adult me that's actually feeling that hurt and sadness. It's actually the child me There was a wounding, there was a part of me in the past when I was younger that was abandoned or rejected, right? I still carry those parts of me right now, right? Even though like I've done a lot of work to address the conflict, that inner child is always gonna be hurt, right? Because I'm in this human experience, I'm in this body, right? I'm always gonna be triggered. I'm always gonna be hurt by what other people say, by what other people do, right? And my work is to be present when that hurt comes up, when that inner child gets triggered and get hurt, right? So in the example that I was giving of the disconnect that I was feeling, I as I noticed the heaviness in my chest, I realized that, hey, like older Bamzi me might be like, oh, why are you being hurt by that, right? And that is dismissal, that is abandonment, right? Because by me saying that, it's like I'm self-rejecting, I'm rejecting the child part of me that's hurt, because it's not adult me. Adult me, I have all the resources, I have all the capacity, I have the understanding to understand that, people are busy, people have different schedules, people, like, it's not about me, it's about them. My adult self understands that, right? But my child self does not understand that. Instead of dismissing, I would be like, okay, what does my child need right now? She needs to know that, like, I'm seeing her, I'm seeing that she's hurt, and she needs me to acknowledge that and give her that love and tell her that you're okay. Like, even if you feel abandoned, even if you feel rejected, I love you and I allow you to exist within me, and it's okay. It's okay to feel like that, right? So that's what I'm constantly doing, right? Because as long as you're in this human experience, you're going to always have to do that work of reparenting yourself. The biggest shift and the biggest transformation has come for me when I've realized that the version of me right now is deserving of the love, is deserving of all of the good feelings, is deserving of everything, right? This version of me, not a future version of me. This version of me in this body is deserving, is worthy of all of those things, right? And so when I do that, then I don't need to live in the past. I don't need to live in the future. I just need to live in the now, right? And give that version of me those things, right? Because often we think that it's an external thing that's going to give us that happiness, that internal freedom, that peace, right? But it's actually what's giving us all of those things is when you address conflict, you create space within for those things to come up, right? Because those things exist within you. It's an inside job. Every single thing that you've ever wanted, whether it's safety, whether it's freedom, whether it's peace, whether it's love, it's actually an inside job, right? And it's if you think of the verse of the Bible, I think there's a verse in the Bible that says that seek the kingdom of God first and everything will fall into place, or something like that, right? That kingdom of God, it's talking about going within, right? Going within, making your internal world primary, right? Realizing that all your inner being wants, all your soul wants, is to actually experience like the joy, the freedom, the peace, right? So whenever like a conflict comes up, when I say conflict, I mean like an internal misalignment. So when you're experiencing conflict, right? It's when something feels off. Either you're feeling angry, you're feeling sad, you're feeling shame, right? It's because you're moving further. You've moved further away from like what your inner being wants, which like is the joy and the peace and the love, right? And this other thing that you're experiencing is like a contrast to what your soul prefers, right? Because your soul prefers like all these good feelings. So whenever you're experiencing conflict and contrast, you know that you're misaligned, right? It's a message. It's a communication, right? It's not a bad thing, right? So what I've come to embody and integrate is that this is not a bad thing. It's just telling me that I'm misaligned, right? This pain is telling me that there's a part of me that needs attention, right? And that is how I've been able to like collapse that, that future and past, right? Instead of like focusing on the future, or instead of focusing on the past, I just focus on the conflict, right? On what is misaligned right now, because I just need to bring myself into alignment, right? I don't need to projecting anything into the future. So if I'm feeling like, one of the things that I've dealt with, for example, is feeling behind in life. That is a big thing that, and a lot of us struggle with that, right? So whenever I feel, oh, I'm not where I need to be, right? That is the thought. That is the thought like that comes in my head. It's like, I'm not where I need to be. So it's like investigating and being curious about like, what is this telling me, right? How does that feel in my body? Like when I say that I'm behind in life, right? For me, for example, I just feel sad. Like I'm not where I need to be, right? It's like, when I get that sense of I'm not where I need to be, it's like, what part of me is feeling left behind? Because truly, like if I sit with myself and I truly ask myself, this version of me right now, is there anything that I lack? Is there anything that's missing? The answer is no. It's not true that I'm behind in life. It's not true that I'm not where I'm supposed to be, right? Because if I truly ask myself, I realize that I'm not lacking anything, right? So then this thought, this belief that I'm not where I need to be, it's an old pattern. It's a pattern that was conditioned, right? So if I address that and realize that this is an old story, right? It doesn't need, then when I realize that it's an old story, then I can cut it before I spiral, right? Because it's by first grounding yourself and realizing that, where I am right now, I'm safe. That is a body experience where like your body needs to feel safe, right? Whether it's by like you're orienting yourself to your surrounding, whether like you're tapping, any somatic practice that you can do to tell your body that you're safe, so that like your mind doesn't hijack you, right? That's what I've been able to do with myself, to actually be curious about what's happening, and then realizing that, oh, it's an old pattern that's coming up, because it needs to be released, it needs to leave my body, right? And the way that it leaves my body is by me actually telling myself the truth, right? And actually that part of me that's feeling behind in life, because it's an old pattern, that was conditioned. And maybe that part of me at some point in my life, maybe when I was starting my career, maybe when I was in college, maybe that part of me, like whenever it felt like I was behind, it would go out and achieve and achieve and achieve and achieve. Maybe that part of me propelled me, because it gave me that drive and ambition, and it propelled me to get to a certain point, right? So it served me at a certain point, but I've really outgrown that part of me right now. So when it comes up, it's coming from a place of protection, because it's telling me like, okay, like if we are behind, if we fall behind, we're going to be unsafe, right? So it's by understanding like, what is it trying to do? I know that you're trying to protect me. Like if you tell me that I'm behind, then I'm gonna go out and achieve and achieve and achieve, so that we don't fall behind, because if we fall behind, we're going to be unsafe, right? That is literally like, you can trace the story. It's about safety, right? And you can tell that part of me. I can tell that part of me like, hey, even if we feel behind in life, even if, you feel that you're behind, I still love you. Even when you're behind, I still love you. I still accept you. Like even if you're failing and you're behind, I still love you. You have a place in my heart. I love you and I accept you and I see you, and I'm not judging you, right? When I do that, that part starts to soften, because it no longer has a story to tell, right? Because I love it. Like what else are you going to do like when you've been embraced in love? So it kind of loses the power, because I've brought it into consciousness and I've loved it, and it starts to dissolve, right? So I no longer am acting out of place of like feeling behind in life. Whatever I move towards, it's not out of like, I need to fix this feeling of feeling behind. I need to fix it. I need to fix it. Whatever I move towards is because of like, oh, my soul is really wanting to go there, right? Like I'm moving from now. I'm not moving because look, okay, if I get there, when I get there and I stop feeling behind, then I'm gonna be happy. Then I'm gonna be peaceful. Then I'm gonna feel free. I'm moving towards things because it's like, oh my gosh. Like, so for example, like if I want to drive like a Suzuki Jimny, I really love that car. It's so cute. If I want to drive that and that's what I desire, I'm like, it's not because it's going to make me worthy. It's because it's going to be so fun. Like if when I open the windows and maybe I have a dog, you know, when dogs have their heads like outside the window and it's like the wind is flowing and it's like so cute. And then I'm like in the driver's seat and I'm just driving that little car and like I'm having so much fun. I'm blasting music. It's because it's fun, right? Like if I want maybe to be a speaker, I want to speak at a conference. It's not because it's going to make me more lovable. It's not because it's going to make me finally worthy, right? It's because I want to experience that. It's because my soul wants to experience that, right? You're moving towards things because your soul wants to experience that truly. Your body always tells you when you're not in alignment, right? And that comes in form of contrast, like I said. You know, so when you're experiencing the sadness, you're feeling shame, you're feeling regretful, you're feeling, you know that you're not in alignment because the body sends you that message. And that is why it feels heavy. That's why it's a sensation in your body. It's a message to tell you, hey, there's something here that you need to address. Whenever that comes up, I don't ignore anymore because what we often do and what then creates suffering is because we want to escape that feeling when it comes up in the body, right? You want to escape by distracting, doom scrolling, watching TV, you know, whatever you do, like drinking, smoking, whatever you do to just escape that. So what I do, I no longer want to escape that. I want to address it as it comes. The more you address it, the more then your mind quiets down, right? Because the body is always the first point of contact. The body is always the first thing that tells you that something is misaligned. But because you miss the body, you often catch the mind because you miss the body, but the body is always the first one. And then if you miss the body, then you start to hearing like stories in your mind. And then when you hear the stories in your mind, they send more messages into the body. And now there's this suffering, right? Because now there's that communication, right? Because you missed that first point of contact, right? So address that first point of contact. When something is misaligned, address it immediately, right? And that way, your mind doesn't need to create crazy stories by revisiting the past, or your mind doesn't need to create crazy stories by creating fake scenarios in the future, right? Or your mind doesn't need to project things into the future. Because when sadness comes, like the example that I gave about like feeling behind in life, if you address that and give that part of you what it needs, you no longer need to project that into the future anymore. And in that way, because you're addressing the body first, then the mind starts to quiet down. Of course, that goes hand in hand with, you know, addressing the body, but also like meditating, right? Meditating or doing yoga, taking nature walks, doing whatever that quiets the mind down. Regulating your nervous system, right? Nervous system is so, so important. Regulating that nervous system so that your body feels safe. When the body feels safe, then the mind will not hijack it. It's not going to be easy, the mind to come and hijack you with crazy stories because your body is already feeling safe. And that is a way that you create that mind and body connection, that coherence, so that you no longer need to escape into the future. You don't need to revisit the past. You're just living in alignment. From moment to moment, asking yourself, like, what am I feeling towards myself? What am I thinking? What are the thoughts that I'm having towards myself, right? If you're having thoughts of like unworthiness, thoughts about like you not being enough, right? Understanding like where are those coming from, you know? Giving yourself that unconditional love, you know, loving this version of you because it deserves the love right now, right? It deserves the peace, it deserves the freedom right now, right? Not in the past, not in the future, right now, right? When you work on your internal world, the outward is going to be reflecting that. because whatever you see in the external world, whatever is in front of you is just actually a projection of your consciousness. When you make your inner world your primary world, the external is just going to reflect that. So I hope this message resonated with you. And if it did, I would really love to hear from you. I would love to hear like what resonated with you, right? Are there things that I missed? Are there things that you want me to expound on and, maybe do like a more longer episode expounding on like specific things, right? That you felt like, oh, I wish I had more about that. I would really love to hear from you. If you're watching on YouTube, comment, on this episode and tell me like what resonated and what you want me to expound on. Like this video, also subscribe to our YouTube channel because it really, really does help us. And if you're listening on Apple and Spotify, rate our podcast and share with people that you think this will resonate with, right? And on Spotify, nowadays, it allows you to actually comment. If you comment on Spotify, it really helps us because then it helps me know that like whatever we're talking about, if it's a guest, if it's me, that it's reaching people, right? And I've been seeing comments from past episodes and it's been so amazing to see like things that are resonating with people. So I would really love to see your engagement. So thank you so much for being with me today. And I will see you next time on the Art of Being podcast. I hope today's conversation resonated with you, brought you a sense of clarity, and maybe even challenged you to reflect further on your healing and spiritual journey. If it resonated with you, I would love to hear from you. If you are watching on YouTube, like this episode, subscribe, and share your feedback and reflections. If you are listening on Apple or Spotify, rate this podcast and leave a review. Your feedback means so much to me. And it also helps the podcast grow and reach more people who may need these conversations. You can also find our socials and email in the episode description. I always love hearing from you. Until next time, take gentle care of your soul, mind, and body.